What's up, Server Nation? This is Mighty Mike, the podcast server, and you are listening to ProcessServerDaily.com. Guys, I'm super excited about today's episode, and if you have a story that you want to tell that you're excited about, maybe a dog chased you, maybe a guy tried to shoot you with his gun, maybe you had a heartwarming story where you helped somebody in need, guys, I want to hear that story on this show. Go to ProcessServerDaily.com/be a guest. Find some studio time. Go to ProcessServerDaily.com/be a guest. I look forward to speaking to you and hearing your story. Let's get to the show. Our guest is an expert in service and process, performing bank levies, wage garnishments, and skip trace investigations for California, Idaho, Hawaii, and Utah. He owns FindMyLegal.com, a legal professional directory. Stephen Snyder, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How did you get started in this industry?
Back in 1991, I was at church with a friend of mine who was a process server. I didn't know that's what he did for a living, but he and I were just talking one day in nursery, because I was the person in charge of the nursery, and his kid was in there, so we were just, chit-chatting. And I said, I've been kind of looking for a part-time job, to do something on the side, make some extra money.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I know something that you might be interested in, that's process serving. I'm like, what is process serving? Never heard of it before. And anyways, he was working for a company in San Jose, California, with a company called T&B Legal, which was owned by Tom Bowman. Now, his new company is called Sterling Madison.
Oh, yeah.
And he's the one, his company hired my friend, and my friend was quitting because his job promoted him and he didn't need to work extra hours anymore. So I said, okay, well, let me go talk to Tom and see if we can work out something. And so I did, and he hired me, and I started working in south of San Jose in the Morgan Hill, Gilroy, Hollister area. And then I just got to thinking, I bet there's other companies that need someone in this area too, because I was the only one. Pretty soon it just blossomed, and I had, a bunch of companies sending me work, as a kind of like an independent contractor for them. I didn't do any work for attorneys or paralegals, directly. I was just working for other companies. So that's kind of how I started.
You have a lot going on right now, and you have full of great experiences. But first, tell me about your worst experience working in the field.
I have been assaulted once. I think it was probably mid-90s. I was trying to serve some papers to some small claims papers to an individual that owed some money to a jeweler. He bought a ring or something and didn't pay for it. Well, I knocked on the door and I spoke to the guy's son, and I told him what I was there for, and I asked him for his father to serve him, and he said his dad wasn't there, and I said, well, according to California civil procedure, I can serve the documents to you. And he got pretty irate about it, and ended up doing a drop serve on him and just saying, you're being served.
Yeah.
It's not really a choice that you have. You're being served. And so I dropped him and started walking away, and I had this feeling to turn around. So as I turned around, this guy was coming at me with a beer bottle to hit me. So I'm a fairly big guy, and this guy was a smaller guy, and I just kind of blocked him. I ended up calling the police, and they came out and cited him, and then I went to the court hearing for him to for his plea, how he's going to plead. Well, he didn't show up. The judge issued a bench warrant for $20,000.
Oh.
I immediately went back to my office, prepared a small claims document, filed it with the court, and we served him in small claims. He showed up to that. And then we just kind of talked and, found out that he, cost him a lot more than what the jeweler bill was, just to try to defend himself. He learned something the hard way. I let him off except for $150.
That's crazy. So you let him off with $150.
Well, he was quite remorseful at this point.
Oh, yeah,
I guess he learned his lesson.
I guess so, yeah.
And he had a misdemeanor on his record. And
man, as a server, when you're knocking on the door and you're going to walk away from the door, always be aware of what's behind you and what's coming at you.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with someone like I was dealing with, became very irate, and he was young. Kind of want to keep your eyes in the back of your head a little bit.
What would you have Server Nation take from your story the most?
Just be aware of your surroundings. Be smart.
Steve, tell me about your greatest experience working in the field.
I think that the greatest experience is when I'm able to deal with persons directly, like what we call in pro per, someone that's representing themselves, and we're able to be successful in helping them get something that they're owed. For example, I had a plaintiff come to me with a $30,000 judgment, and he didn't know how to collect from this guy. We did a few things, including recording the judgment, and it attached to the to the defendant's property, so that when he refinanced or sold, it would force him into paying the judgment. And so it was just a matter of preparing the abstract of judgment, recording it, and then within a few months, this guy ended up refinancing his home, and my client got $30,000 judgment.
Oh, wow. I've been able to take people to the point of judgment very successfully, like getting their papers filed, getting them served, getting a judgment, and then kind of, other than evictions, obviously, getting a writ and lockout. But other than that, it's been pretty kind of like, I don't know, you got to find their bank account. So for servers like me, how I've been in the past, would you be a good contact then to say, hey, I know this guy, go ahead and contact this guy. He'll be able to find their bank.
Well, I do have a service for finding bank accounts. I work with a private investigator out of Montana, and they've got some kind of software that they've developed, and they can find bank accounts.
That's cool.
And then once we find out what that bank account is, then as a registered process server in California, I can prepare a notice of levy and get the documents ready to do a bank levy.
That's right. And that's why it's so important, I think, to collaborate and communicate with other servers in the industry. Yes, sometimes we might be direct competition with each other, but more often than not, we end up helping each other in this grand scheme, this process.
Yeah, definitely networking with other legal professionals is the way to go.
That's an awesome story, Steve. Tell me about what you're working on right now that has you most fired up.
I've been in the business since 1991, and I've learned how to build a business, and I own several of them. Hawaii Process Service, Utah Process Service, Idaho Process Service. I could go on and just keep expanding my business. But I don't have the time to manage them all. So what I've been excited about doing is finding young process servers that are not found on the web. They need help to build their business. And so I work in conjunction with my company, findmylegal.com, and helping new process servers build their business and get noticed on the internet, because that's pretty much key. People, when they do a search, they go onto Google and they look up the city, the state, and then the word process server. And if your website is ranked on Google, they'll find you. And we help the young process server build their new business.
Well, Steve, that is worth being excited about. Would you say it was findmylegal.com?
Yes.
Findmylegal.com. So Server Nation, you're a new server out there. Go to findmylegal.com. And roughly, what does it cost, Steve?
Well, to list your company in the entire state, it's $6.99 per month. If you want us to help build a website, between $100 and $200, depending on how many cities you want to advertise your company in.
That's very inexpensive. That's possible for pretty much any server to be able to afford. There are other directories I know out there that charge just for one county, $20 and such. So, Steve, what advice would you give for the struggling server out there right now?
What I would do is I would Google legal professional directory and get your name on as many free websites as possible. There are others you can pay for, which rank very high on Google. The budget is an issue. The first thing to do is to get hooked up with some legal professional directories that have a link from their website to yours, which assumes that you have one. So that would be one thing that you would want to do, is make sure you get yourself a website. And I use GoDaddy.com. They're great. They host all my websites, and they have a pretty cool program in there that helps you create your website. And if you don't want to do that, findmylegal.com can help you do that. I usually just buy them and then build a website on them, search engine optimize them, and off and running.
So Server Nation, Steve has been dropping some major value bombs on us today, but prepare yourself because we're headed into the rapid fire round after a word from our sponsors. Server Nation, I know you're with the times and you want to do whatever you can to have all of the resources for your client. That is why I created 123efile.com. As a process server, attorney, or even an improper, you can visit the website and file your documents in any of the Tyler courts in California. With its easy-to-use, one-page operation, you can have your e-filing done in a matter of minutes and get back to what really matters. If your time is important to you, visit 123efile.com. Okay, welcome back to the show. Steve, are you ready for the rapid fire round?
Excited about it.
If you could recommend one app, what would it be and why?
You know, I'm a pretty simple guy. I just use Google Maps. It just tells me where to go. After I finish a serve, I put in the next address and tells me where to go.
You know what they say, keep it super simple. KISS, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what case tracking software would you recommend as the best?
For many years, I used QuickBooks. It just kept track of how much people owed me. That's primarily because I worked for other process serve companies. But as my business developed where I was working for attorneys directly, I needed to keep track of information specifically on them and the jobs and the proofs of service. I investigated several companies, worked with one. I didn't care for it, but I found the best one that works for me is servemanager.com. I definitely recommend them. One thing that it helps me to do is to manage all of the different companies that I have. So I can create a job, make a server the other company if I want to. Some of my customers are here in Utah and they have a job in California. So I'll receive the job in Utah Process Service, then I'll assign it to California company, which is Hollister Process Service. And then my secretary there will assign it to a process server. So we can kind of keep track of the chain of how the job is hired out. So
you're using it also internally, not just like me getting a job, sending it out. This case tracking software not only tracks the serve to be able to send it to people, but you are also, with all of these softwares, you're able to create a proof of service, which for many servers is some of the biggest challenges. They're trying to find what documents to put their proof of service on.
Yes, the servemanager.com has a bunch of different proofs of service, a lot in California. The POS, L1L for summons, complaints, the small claims, proof of service, and you can prepare all those proofs of service within the Serve Manager program and then save them. And then as the company that's prepared it, I can then email it to my server for them to print out or electronically sign directly within the software, and then I can forward that proof of service directly to the customer.
It's been a great resource for us here at 530 Process Servers. What is your favorite skip trace tip or trick?
I use a company called IRB Search. Usually check someone out there first. If the information on there is not really clear, delve into some things deeper, like maybe going to the post office to verify some addresses with the postal verification form.
That's great.
And then I also check Facebook, check out to see where people might be working, because they always are real proud of where they work and they put down where it is, and then you can link to it.
Yeah, another great Facebook tip or trick that I've found is if you feel like they're super secretive, but they usually will have their relationship status and they'll say married to Jane or whoever, you can go into Jane's, and a lot of times Jane isn't as secret, and then go to their profile and then you find out actually what street they live on based on photographs. I feel like as servers, sometimes we become professional stalkers and we can find anybody. That's kind of the goal, is to find them just to give them the papers and that's it, but you still found them. And so,
yeah, any little bit of information that you can get will start to pinpoint where this person is. And that's the whole idea with skip tracing.
That's right. I feel like maybe the theme of this episode is going to be keep it super simple and keep it back to the basics, because it's so important to at least know what you need to do. IRB is a great resource. It's one of my skip tracing softwares that I use as well. What is your favorite tool for defense?
I would say common sense.
That's good. Yeah, the common sense isn't too common anymore. What book would you recommend?
That's a good question. I think any kind of book that can help you to focus on the day's activities, if that's the Bible or the Book of Mormon or whatever, you can read. to spend some time in the morning before you go out and take some time on reading something that's going to be uplifting to you so you can clear your mind and so that you can be aware of your surroundings, during the day.
There are many different books that help you become a better person. I feel like as a server, and just having a well-balanced life is really important. As a process server, we spend a lot of time on the road, in the car, maybe sometimes a lot of time away from our family. And I think starting your day off right, whether it's reading scriptures or meditating and those different types of things to help zero yourself, give yourself a foundation to build on, is very important. Thank you for that, Steve. Would you say that you have a mentor?
Well, I always try to if I have a question about something, I'll usually go back to my source company. If I have a question about something, I'll go to another process server that I respect. I've used Tom Bowman's office, and I've used Attorney Service of Merced. They're pretty experienced too, and so I usually bounce some ideas off of other process servers that have been in the business a while. So as far as process serving, I went to California, to get my CCPS license when I first started out, and the speaker there said that after you serve someone, get in the car and drive away. Don't try to do your notes right there. And I think there's wisdom in that, because if this guy figures out what you just did to him, you just served him papers, and he might become pretty upset and try to give them back to you. So if you're gone down the street, it's going to be harder for him to get to you. So I always try to drive a few hundred, maybe a couple hundred yards down the road and then write my notes.
Yeah, that's been a good one. That's something that I learned as well. That's a really great tip, a great thing that every server needs to learn. You don't spend time sitting in front of the house. You don't spend time in a place that you may be in danger. I mean, if you're looking down at your notes, you're not really watching the house or watching the person that you just served. Just turn around the corner. I have a 2-corner policy. When I leave the house, I go one corner, another corner, and then I can pull over. Like, I'm going till I can pull down a side street somewhere, because that's safety is number one. Safety is the most important thing.
Exactly.
Jim Rohn said that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. I'm really happy to hear that you have mentors. I know that I've certainly had mentors in different process serving companies and things that, like I said before, you would consider competition, but they actually end up being some of your greatest resources. Steve, this next question, it's one of our last questions, is a doozy. What would you do if you woke up today, had all the same skills and knowledge, had no clients, a smartphone, a car, and only $100? What would you do in the next 7 days?
As far as process serving goes, I would first get myself a website. You can do that for under $100. If I was a brand new server, that's what I would do, is get myself a website and then develop it and help you move forward in starting a process serve company. Myself, during my 25 plus years, I have been diversified in other types of businesses. I'm also a tax preparer. I've driven Uber. Sometimes your business is a little slow at sometimes, and so you want to make sure you're diversified so that if your company does tank, that you have something else to fall back on.
Steve, what I take most from your story is the idea that as a process server, you can't completely depend solely on getting a job every day that you're going to go out and serve. That it might be good to go out and get another. I know when I first started, I went and got my notary license. It wasn't a whole lot, but if it gave me 3 or 4 extra jobs a week, then it was worth it. So that's great. Preparing taxes, it doesn't necessarily correlate, but what's interesting is I bought a domain name, efiletoday.com. Thought, I'm going to just run with this e-filing thing. And then I started realizing that e-file is almost more recognizable to the tax filing industry than it is for the legal industry.
Well, the knowledge I've gained from all the different employment has just been beneficial. So, because there are things that I've learned with being a tax preparer that have helped me with being a process server, and vice versa. Whatever you can do to gain knowledge, that's important.
That's great, Steve. You've been dropping some major value bombs on us today, teaching us that keeping it simple is the most important, building a foundation for each day, finding ways to market yourself to other process serving companies, and then feeding off of each other, building a network, being able to get your name out there is really important. Steve, what is the best way that we can connect with you, and then we can say goodbye?
Depending on which company you want to hire, you can go onto the web and look us up. my company in California is Hollister Process Service. You can phone me at on my cell phone. I'll give that to you. 808-557-5615. If you have any questions about wanting some help building your new process serve company, I'd be glad to sit down and talk with you, no charge, and we can just go over what your goals are. And then I can make some suggestions on what you can do. And if you want to use my services to help build you a website, I'd be glad to help you out.
Wow, Server Nation, if you heard that, you just heard that Mr. Snyder is willing to personally help you build your business. Steve, thank you again. You have a great day. We appreciate you being on.
I'm glad that you had me on. It was an awesome experience.
Server Nation, I know that you know all about directories and that you know the importance of getting yourself on the web in as many places as possible. But it's more than that, Server Nation. It's about putting yourself on the websites that get ranked on Google, Yahoo, and Bing. I'm excited about a new program that I'm starting. Really quickly, let me tell you, as a process server, I don't cover the whole country, right? We send servers out to other process servers, and we call that affiliates. My new program is going to incorporate a system when my customers come onto my website and they do a location search to try to find a process server in a specific location. Many times, I do not serve that area, and so I might hire an affiliate in another area and manage the serve that way. That takes time and effort away from my local customers and the local efforts that I have here in Northern California. I want to personally invite each and every member of Server Nation to add themselves to my directory on my website. This is what's going to happen. My customers who come to me loyally will search a specific location. If I don't cover a specific location, but you do, guess who shows up? You do. How great is that, Server Nation? I'm going to share something that means so much to me, my customers. I believe that this will benefit my customers because they will have a resource to go to find process servers and to get the best rates nationwide. Oh, but there's a catch, Server Nation. There's always a catch. My directory is free for an affiliate to sign up and get the basic affiliate level. But if you do not perform, when my customers come and they see that it's not me or one of my employees or contractors and they see that it's you, they're going to see a rating next to your name. If your rating falls, you may not get any business. Server Nation, give it a shot. Sign up for the free listing, but please take care of my customers. I love them like their family. Visit processserverdaily.com/affiliates. Until next time, Server Nation, stay safe out there.